Sariaka, and today I want to talk about Bartleby the Scrivener, A Story of Wall Street, and its author, Herman Melville. Bartleby poses some interesting questions in response to thinkers like Emerson and Thoreau and the works they produced in the American Renaissance, partially due to Melvin's own lived experiences and partially due to the changes the American experiment experienced shortly after the decline of the Transcendentalists. Let's start with a brief summary. Bartleby the Scrivener is narrated by Bartleby's boss, an unnamed lawyer late in his career. He runs a comfortable business with two Scriveners, effectively human Xerox machines, under his employ, Nippers and Turkey. The two aren't necessarily the most efficient employees, but between them they complete whatever tasks are at hand. Due to an increase in business, the lawyer puts out an ad for a third Scrivener. Enter. At first, Bartleby produces high-quality work at a high volume, but when asked to proofread a copy, he simply declines, stating, "I would prefer not to." This so shocks Lawyer that he lets it slide. Later, both of the other copyists are divvying up proofreading duties on a longer document, and the lawyer calls Bartleby in to help, and again we hear, "I would prefer not to." Confused by this behavior, Lawyer lets Bartleby continue to work. Around this time, our friend the lawyer starts noticing some of Bartleby's more eccentric habits. He rarely eats and is never seen leaving the office, and he especially never proofs his own work. One Sunday, Lawyer stops by the office and discovers Bartleby is living in the building. Lawyer assumes that Bartleby's life is so unfortunate he doesn't have lodgings of his own, therefore staying in the office. Later that week, Bartleby announces that he will cease to complete any work at all, finally giving Lawyer the push he needs to fire the kid. Nevertheless, Bartleby persists. Because Lawyer has a soft heart, he lets Bartleby stay in the office, doing nothing until some friends and clients make some disparaging remarks about what effectively amounts to having a homeless dude squat in your workplace. Mostly that it's gross and unprofessional. Considering his inability to kick Bartleby out, Lawyer decides to just sell the building and buy a new one. The people who now own Bartleby's home evict Lawyer's assistance in removing our hero, and Lawyer offers to put Bartleby up in his own home, which, as you may have guessed, Bartleby would prefer not to do. Bartleby is sent to jail for vagrancy, wherein he refuses to meet with Lawyer. After Bartleby is released from prison, Lawyer goes to visit him, finding Bartleby lying on the ground outside the prison yard, dead. Our story concludes with Lawyer explaining that he'd heard from someone who knew someone that Bartleby had been employed previously by the dead letter office, which Lawyer believes explains his strange behavior. If I were a dad, I'd put a joke about going postal here. Despite its status as Melville's most canonical short story, analysis of Bartleby the Scrivener proves elusive, and we mostly see some really half-baked hypotheses as to the actual meaning of the text. Leo Marx, unrelated to that Marx, posits Bartleby as an author proxy, drawing parallels between Melville's own frustrations with completing his work on Moby Dick and Bartleby's outright refusal to complete his work in the law firm. Another hypothesis, presented by Robert Adams, states that Bartleby may represent the changing mental health climate of that era, noting that he exhibits many symptoms of depression, particularly isolation, lack of motivation, and executive dysfunction. According to Abrams, lack of motivation to survive is what gets Bartleby in the end. In order to adequately discuss Bartleby, I think we need a better idea of Melville's mid-19th century. Generally, the American economy was in a period of transition, moving away from agriculture and towards industrialization. This change left many farmers and field workers devoid of work in the North. Simultaneously, banks in this era were generating more banknotes than they had gold and silver to back them, causing a sharp rise in artificial inflation, while trading on the interest gathered from deposits which, in turn, increased the importance of the stock market in the American economy. As the nation moved away from the gold standard and moved into the global marketplace, the American market improved shakily. There was a period of prosperity between economic panics which failed to benefit the working class. In short, things were not great for the North financially. Initial success of Moby Dick, Melville was optimistic about his career as a novelist, although his subsequent novels were released to poor reviews and even poorer sales. It was around this time that Melville and his wife had their third and fourth children, putting the family under even greater economic constraint. Melville made a habit of isolating himself while working, which caused myriad health issues, and he eventually took out a loan from his wife's inheritance to go on vacation as a means to improve both his physical and mental health. While vacationing in England, Melville met up with his friend Nathaniel Hawthorne, and told him he had, quote, pretty much made up his mind to be annihilated, which Hawthorne attributed to Melville's inability to find satisfaction in his work. His final novel continued to receive poor reviews. Back to Bartleby. While many critics of Bartleby rely on a modern understanding of American culture to analyze the text, It seems prudent to me to consider the possibility that Melville may have been writing a critique of the transcendentalist philosophy shortly preceding his own work. That is, Bartleby can easily serve as a rejection of Emerson's and Thoreau's emphasis on self-actualization as the teleological means of human existence. Bartleby's initial industriousness shows his ability to work accurately and efficiently, effectively a dream employee. This is why, instead of receiving so much as a firm talking to, lawyer friend lets him get away with declining to proofread his own work. As time passes, Bartleby decreases his workload, increasing his personal agency and autonomy in the workplace. The end of the story gives us a hint as to the origin of his desire for self-determination. By working in the dead letters office, Bartleby was subjected to a bleak existence with limited exit strategies, and working as a government employee did not afford, argued Bartleby, any sort of freedom. As such, the real struggle lies in what Bartleby does with his freedom. Once he has achieved total agency, he ceases to function, whether that has to do with his being accustomed to stagnation or paralyzed by too many choices. Bartleby opts instead not to engage in any action whatsoever, revealing Melville to be critical of self-determination as a virtue. While it's not explicitly clear what Melville's problem with self-determination is, it is apparent that Bartleby's possession of it proves detrimental. While Bartleby may represent agency and empowerment for some, for Melville he represents an entirely different set of social problems, namely that total autonomy is probably not the be-all or end-all of humanity. Bartleby the Scrivener reveals Melville's bias against transcendentalism and serves as a cautionary tale about adopting a personal philosophy without first considering the consequences.